KGTV, KGTV, Ƙauran Gwando Television, Ƙauran Gwando Television, Ƙauran Gwando Television. Sabon gidan talabijin nan mai farin jini, wato Ƙauran Gwando TV, mai watsa labarun gaskiya a zamanance.
We start? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كذا introduction. One introduction. No need. I would like to welcome all of you to this interaction. I see it as an interaction than a formal press briefing. My intention here is to interact with you on the dominant issue of the day in Kebbi State, the issue of flood and its aftermath. The issue of flood in Kebbi State is two-dimensional. And my intention is to highlight the two with the intention of securing the necessary publicity for it, because it's like we are still battling when other states have already gone into saving lives and property. We're not just battling with flood already here, but there are warnings that we should brace up for more of it. My intention is to discuss this with you, give you some updates, and then speak about the two issues at stake today in Kebbi State. Even before we received the warning from Meteorological Agency, we were already neck deep in massive flooding that has hit Kebbi from various angles. You already know that we have cases of breakdown of bridges in some sensitive roads in Kebbi. We also have cases of erosion of farmlands, and we also have been battling on how to not just save lives and property, but also ensure that the imminent food problem in the food chain of the country is averted. In Kebbi State, as I said earlier, before the warning of that was issued about impending flood disaster coming from as far a place as the highlands of Central Guinea, we were already battling. In fact, there is no local government in Kebbi State today that is not battling one form of flood or the other. Very massively in 16 local government areas already, minimally in 4 or 5 of the remaining local government areas. I asked for this interaction in order to highlight the enormity of the problem to Nigerians and all those concerned to see it as it is in order to take necessary action, because it's like the Kebbi State government alone, as it is today, cannot handle this matter alone. As you are aware, the impending risk alert by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NAMET, which predicted a likely occurrence of devastating flooding in at least 16 of 20 local government areas in Kebbi State. The Kebbi State government was proactive in adopting some of the measures spelled out by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, as possible strategy that could help prevent or reduce the extent of anticipated destruction of lives and property as well as infrastructures. It is, however, important to note that in spite of these measures taken by the state government, the state has recorded severe flooding in at least 16 local government areas, which include Argungu, Auji, Suru, Bagodo, Kalgo, Dandi, Mayama, Shanga, Ngaski, Koko Bese, Birnin Kebbi, Yauri, Gwandu, Aleru, Mayama, and Jega. As I pointed out earlier, 5 of the local governments were minimally affected. Most of the farmlands submerged are located within the basins of Rima River and River Niger. The heavy downpour experienced this year, which was considered unprecedented for several decades, led to the unfortunate incidents of flood in Kebbi State. Other contributory factors are the release of water from Shagari and Goronyo dams in Sokoto State. An overflow of these dams forced water through towns and villages, leading to displacement of people and destruction of farm produce worth 100 millions of naira. Some of these inhabitants of many villages and towns deliberately built houses on waterways, thereby obstructing the free flow of water. It is important to note that every local government area in Kebbi State has one type of flood disaster or the other. However, this report identified two basic groups of flood victims. Number one, those that lost their residences to flood or their houses submerged. Number two, those that have bought houses and farmlands submerged and farm produce washed away. Apart from the displacement of hundreds of people and destruction of their houses and properties, the flood was very serious in the agricultural sector, which is the mainstay of the rural economy, from which over 80% of the population affected by the flood derives their means of livelihood. The loss of these farmlands and farm produce forced many peasant farmers into the life of penury and misery. The situation is precarious and can only be addressed by provision of improved seeds, fertilizers, and other farm inputs to the flood victims, and encourage them to embark on dry season farming. As you are aware, the Kebbi State government established a committee to manage this flood issue. The idea initially was for us to respond to the warning by NEMET that we were expecting Kebbi to be hit by flood coming from as far as Central Guinea. But at the same time, we were already dealing with the issue of submerged farmlands, very many of them. And the committee set up by the state government expanded its mandate in order to make the report wholesome. The idea is that we may be having problems in Kebbi. In Borno, already in Maiduguri, the flood issue has already been dealt with. It affected only 1 or 2 local government areas. And these local government areas, Maiduguri and Jere local government, the water has receded and people's lives are going back to normal. In the case of Kebbi State, which is the agricultural hub rice hub of Nigeria, we're battling with we're talking about 16 local government areas, including Benin Kebbi itself. And that we risk serious food shortage in this country if care is not taken, if nothing tangible is done, in order not just to move farmers from low land to higher lands in the 16 local government areas, but also ensure that they do not go into bankruptcy. If that happens, they are not likely to have the courage and the economic power to engage in irrigation farming. And if that happens too, we know the implication to food supply and food chain in this country. The committee invited all the local government chairmen and discussed with them thoroughly, and the committees were set up at local government levels. Stakeholders were included and they were asked to make submission. We categorized the losses into 2. We talked about number of households affected in each local government area, and this we're talking about destruction to mainly the houses they live in. We're also secondly talking about the farmlands. And at the end of the day, all the 21 local government areas were categorized, and we asked them for submissions to be made. Submissions have already been made, and we are talking about getting the main report, which I'm sure will be ready this afternoon, and our intention is to submit it to NEMA immediately in order for the federal government to begin to take action in conjunction with not just state government but other stakeholder partners in order to save the situation for the state. At the end of the day, we're talking about 329,000 households affected across the 21 local government areas in Kebbi State. 329,000. We're also talking about farmlands, and these farmlands, we're talking about rice farmlands, millet, guinea corn, beans, and the rest. And you also know that Kebbi contributes a lot to the food basket, and the problem here is likely to impact negatively on the food chain in the country. And we're talking about a total of 858,000 and some fractions of, hectares of farmlands affected across the state. The idea is this: if we fail to address it squarely as a country and as a state, we are talking about an impending flood coming. We are already in dire situation in the state of farmlands submerged, houses destroyed. And if this flood comes as anticipated, and it's likely to come, then it's going to be worsened, and we may have a very serious catastrophe in our hands. Saving lives and property is very essential. At the same time, saving the farmlands. In this case, we're not even talking about saving the farmlands because they have already been submerged. Whatever has been planted has been lost. We're talking about how to empower these people to remain on their farms in order to continue to produce the food we eat here and eat outside within the country. So our intention personally is to use the media this time around to get across to Nigerians and the world at large to understand the predicament Kebbi is in today. The enormity of the problem is such that something drastic and urgent has to be done in order to bring succor not just to the people but to save the nation. Already we have a number of economic challenges in the country. Exorbitant food prices everywhere, hitting the rooftops, and Nigerians complain about inability due to these reforms to be able to feed themselves. If we add that with the apparent food shortage that is going to follow the flood problems, then you can just imagine what is likely to happen nationwide. We have local government areas in Kebbi State that are very close to rivers. If you go to Shanga, the situation is such that you will cry for the people there. People have not just lost their houses, but they are unable to feed now because of lack of, there is no yield at all for them. They have expended what they have on the farms, and they are left with virtually nothing. And we're also talking about injuries. We have not even taken a table for it because we're still counting. But on the deaths, already we have 7 in Gaski, 8 in Mayama, we have 5 in Kalgo, 7 in Jega. In Minikebe, as last count, we're talking about 2, but I know there are quite a number of them more that have not been taken. And there are still other local government areas who are expecting reports from local government chairman of such casualties. So we have a whole lot of problem here that requires not just, because as I said earlier, we should be mindful of this. The state government alone cannot handle this matter. It's a national issue, and we need the country as a whole to rise in order to ensure that the needful is done to save the situation in Kebbi State. Don't forget, we also have issues of ecological problems arising from the downpour we were getting across the state. Kebbi State is unique in this respect. We have River Niger crisscrossing into Kebbi by, as I said earlier, by over 100 kilometers. River Rima by over 200 kilometers. River Ka, Gulbin Ka, by over 250 kilometers. this is aside the tributaries that you see everywhere in Kebbi State. So we have high and low lands. It's just natural, therefore, for us to suffer most in the case of flood coming in. And it should be expected that when there is serious downpour, as we've had this year, there are likely to be issues, and we have them already. And it's the responsibility of government through agencies and non-governmental organizations and the state governments as well to rise up. Now we are battling because we have a problem with people building houses on low land because of accessibility to the rivers for food production and fishing. But when there is problem for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you hardly experience such problems. Normal life for them. But as soon as we begin to have problems, naturally their houses will be submerged and their farms. So we're now talking about taking them upland. Already we've started doing that. But again, we have this problem of people still going back lowland. As soon as this is dealt with, they go back lowland, and as soon as there is a problem, we begin to have issues again with them. But at the same time, the state government is doing all that is necessary to ensure that we begin to not. In fact, if it is required to be forceful this time around, government will be forceful in order to save lives and property. An jama'a kan ambaliyar da aka yi hasashen za ta addabi Najeriya ta jihar Kebbi, har hukumar kula da yanayi ta Najeriya ne mai ta bamu gargadin cewa jihar Kebbi na ambaliya idan ta taso daga tsakiyar kasar Gini za ta shigo Najeriya ta cikin jihar Kebbi, kuma akwai yiwuwar cewa za a samu ambaliya mai karfin da za ta kawo barna da yawa a Najeriya. Mun san cewa daga baya mun yi wannan magana, har gwamnatin jihar Kebbi ta saka kwamiti mai karfi karkashin mataimakin gwamnan jiha saboda duma wannan lamari a san wani mataki za a dauka. To kafin wannan abun mun san cewa fa dama mu ambaliya ta zo mana jihar Kebbi, kuma ta kai gama ba karamar hukumar da a cikin ƙananan hukumomi 21 da muke jihar Kebbi ba wadda ba ambaliya ba ta shafa ba, sai dai yanayin magana cewa wata local government ta yi wata local government. Amma dai a yanzu da magana da muke yi muna da tabbacin cewa ƙananan hukumomi 16 ambaliya ta yi matuƙar barna tun kafin a kawo wannan maganar gargaɗin cewa za mu sake samun ruwa masu ƙarfin da za su kawo mana matsala. A gaskiyar magana shine magana da muke nan a yanzu ƙananan hukumomi 16 suna fama da wannan abun, kuma fama ba kaɗan ba. Wasu ƙananan hukumomi ma gidaje da yawa sun rushe. Baya ga haka gonaki da dama na shinkafa, na gero, na wake, na dawa, bila adadin su ma ruwa ya rufe su ko ya bata abincin da ake. Magana da muke yi shine cewa wannan fa babban bala'i ne ga kasa gaba daya, ba wajen Kebbi kawai ba. Muna maganar ambaliya na zuwa mai karfi, muna maganar tuni ma mu gonakinmu da mutanenmu sun yi hasara, an yi hasara rayuka da yawa, an yi hasara gidaje da yawa, an yi hasara abinci, kuma ana magana cewa ambaliya na zuwa. Ma'ana dai mu muna hasashen cewa idan ba a yi wani wuri da cikin gawa ba, to jihar Kebbi na iya samun matsalar, ko kuma Najeriya na iya samun matsala ta karancin abinci ko karin tsadarsa. Tuni ma dai mun riga mun san cewa akwai tsada abinci a Najeriya, da tsada komai akwai ma. To amma mun riga mun san cewa idan abinci aka same shi wadatu yayi sauki, kusan komai na sauki a ƙasa. Don haka muke kokawan cewa ya kamata a duba wannan lamari yadda ya kamata, a fahimci cewa wannan abin da ke tafiya ibtila'in nan ƙasa ne zai shafa saboda rashin abincin. Ba ma maganar ma wai yadda za a yi yanzu a ɗauki, muna magana yadda za a ɗauki mutanen da suke ƙasa, suke kusa da ruwa, wanda suke gina gidajensu saboda noma da kamun kifi, amma da su sama ta inda wannan ruwa da ke tsammanin yana zuwa ko ya zo ba za a samu rashin rayuka kamar da mara kima ba. Muna magana da a yi abin da ya kamata a tabbatar da cewa, kuma mun riga mun fara a jihar Kebbi tun an riga an sa kwamiti ya fara aiki tuntuni, har ma mun samu rahoto daga ƙananan hukumomi shugabanninsu duk guda 21 da ke jihar Kebbi, kuma a kowane karamar hukuma muna da yakinin cewa banar da aka samu kafin yanzu da kuma wadda ake tsammanin za tana zuwa wadda ba mu sa kanta ba tunda ba mu ga wannan ruwan ya zama tukuna, amma an ce yana zuwa din. Magana da muke yanzu haka nan muna maganar cewa gidaje a jikin ƙananan hukumomi 21 jihar Kebbi an rasa gidaje fiye da 329 tuni. Ana magana kuma hekta ta gonar shinkafa da sauran kayan abinci hekta fiye da 850 da wani abu. Idan ka duba wannan kasancewa fa akwai babban matsala abinci a Najeriya. Wannan matsala kuma insha Allah maganinta shine haɗin kai, samun goyon bayan gwamnati tarayya da wasu ƙasashe da hukumomi masu zaman kansu wanda ba na gwamnati ba, saboda a tashi a magance wannan abun. Muna kuma maganar abinci ne, muna kuma maganar yanayin tattalin arzikin manoma. Jihar Kebbi kashi 80 mu manoma ne, ana noma na gaske, kuma wannan noman da ake ana noma irin abincin da ake ci a Najeriya ne. To ya kamata na kira ku ne saboda yi muku wannan magana, saboda a yayata ta taka inda ya kamata a fahimci cewa akwai bala'i. Ƙananan hukumomin da muka yi magana an mutu da yawa, an samu gawawaki da yawa akan wannan abin da ya faru. Illa iyaka mu dai a wannan karo mun samu labarin kamar haka. A ƙaramar hukumar Gaski akwai mutuwa da aka samu guda 7, a ƙaramar hukumar Mayyama akwai 8, a Kalgo akwai 5, a Jega akwai 7, a nan Birnin Kebbi zuwa yanzu akwai guda 2. Duk da yake ana tsammanin da yawa a sake bayana nan gaba kaɗan. Labarin su kenan. Wato muna maganar rashin rayuka, muna maganar rashin abinci, muna maganar barna da aka yi gidajen mutane. To duk inda aka samu, don kuga a Maiduguri da aka samu wannan bala'i yana iya shafar cin abinci, to ya cancanta a zo a kawo Kebbi dauki daga gwamnatin tarayya. Yanzu aka dai mun gama rahotanni mu yau insha Allah mun gama rubuta, ana hanya zuwa Abuja don a tabbatar da cewa wanda abin ya shafa stakeholders din kowa ya fahimci abin da ke faruwa, saboda a ɗauki matakin da za a magance wannan abin. Ba muna magana a hana ruwa zuwa ba, a muna magana a ɗauki matakan da ya kamata a ɗauka. Misali na ɗauka mutane a kai su sama. Tuni muna da wuraren da akwai 'yan gudun hijira ko wanda aka ɗauka daga ƙasa aka kai su sama, ko a makarantu da dama an sa irin wannan mutanen, kuma ana ƙoƙarin a sake ɗaukar wasu don su yi yawa ƙwarai da gaske a kai su sama din. Da haka abu nake son mun ci mu haɗu da ku mu dan tattauna ku fahimci abin da ke faruwa ta hannunku, kuma mutanen ƙasa su san da duniya gaba da su san me ke faruwa, cewa akwai bala'i babba da ke tafe kuma ya cancanci a zo a yi maganin sa bai daya.
KGTV Ƙauren Gwando Talabijin. Ƙauren Gwando Talabijin. Ƙauren Gwando Talabijin. Sabon gidan talabijin nan mai farin jini, wato Ƙauren Gwando TV, mai watsa labarun gaskiya a zamanance.